The woman held the smoking gun like she'd been born to it. Her auburn hair fell in wild waves across bare shoulders, the torn fabric of her dress clinging to curves that spoke of both softness and steel. Blood spattered her cheek, not her own. The dead man at her feet had made his last mistake. Marcus Cole stood in the barn doorway, his own Colt halfway drawn. The smart thing would be to turn around, ride away, pretend he'd never seen the fire in those gray eyes, or the way her chest rose and fell with each ragged breath. But Cole had stopped doing smart things the day he'd become a wanted man. "You gonna shoot me too?" she asked, voice steady as granite. The gun in her hands never wavered. "Depends." Cole holstered his weapon slowly. Was he trying to kill you, or just trying to collect what he figured was his? Her laugh was bitter as alkali water. "Same thing, mister." The wind howled through the broken boards, carrying the scent of copper and gunpowder. Two outlaws. Two secrets. One choice that would change everything. Before we ride deeper into this tale, hit that like if you're ready for a story that'll grip you tighter than a Mustang's reins, and tell us in the comments where you're reading from. We love hearing from our fellow wanderers. What Cole did next would either save them both or get them killed. The desert had taught Cole many things: how to read the sky for storms, how to make water last when your throat felt like sandpaper, how to tell the difference between a man running toward trouble and a man running from it. What it hadn't taught him was how to walk away from a woman who looked at him like he might be salvation, and damnation rolled into one. "Help me bury him," she said, lowering the gun. "Then we'll talk." Red, that's what he'd taken to calling her in his mind, moved with purpose. No tears, no shaking hands. She grabbed the dead man's boots while Cole took his shoulders. The body was still warm. "Heavy bastard," she muttered, adjusting her grip. The motion pulled her dress tight across her chest, and Cole forced himself to look away. This wasn't the time for such thoughts, though he couldn't help noticing how her strength matched his own, how she didn't flinch from the grim work. They dragged the corpse to a shallow grave behind the barn. The ground was hard-packed clay, unforgiving as the woman beside him. Cole's shovel bit deep, muscles working beneath his shirt. Sweat carved clean lines through the dust on his face. "Name's Scarlet," she said between shovelfuls, "but folks call me Red." Cole. He didn't offer his last name. Names were dangerous things out here. "This your place now?" "Bought it yesterday. Figured I was getting a bargain." He paused, leaning on the shovel. "Should have known better." Red wiped her brow with the back of her wrist, leaving a smudge of dirt. Life's full of surprises. The grave was shallow but deep enough. They rolled the body in, covered it with stones and earth. By the time they finished, the sun hung low and angry in the western sky. "Who was he?" Cole asked. Red's jaw tightened. "My husband's business partner. Came looking for money that don't exist." She met his eyes. "Among other things." The way she said it told Cole everything he needed to know. Some debts couldn't be paid in silver. They walked back to the house in silence. The place looked different now. Not just abandoned, but haunted. Windows stared like empty eye sockets. The porch sagged under the weight of secrets. "You're not what I expected," Red said as they reached the steps. "What did you expect?" "Another vulture. Someone looking to pick clean bones." She studied his face in the dying light. "You're different. Dangerous, but different." Cole almost smiled. If she only knew how dangerous. Inside, Red lit a kerosene lamp. The yellow glow carved shadows from her cheekbones, pooled in the hollow of her throat. She moved through the small space like she belonged there, gathering supplies, checking the windows. Her dress had torn further during the burial, revealing glimpses of pale skin beneath. "You staying the night?" she asked. It wasn't really a question. Outside, coyotes were beginning their evening song. The nearest town was 20 miles of hard riding through territory that didn't welcome strangers after dark. "Seems that way." Red nodded toward a cupboard. "There's beans. Coffee if you want it?" Cole found himself watching the way she moved as she prepared their meager supper. There was a dancer's grace to her steps, even in work boots and a torn dress. When she bent to stoke the fire, the lamplight caught the curve of her hip, the gentle swell of her breasts beneath worn cotton. She caught him looking. "Been a while since a man saw me as more than a burden," she said quietly. "I don't see you as a burden." "What do you see?" Cole considered his words carefully. "A woman who knows how to survive." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. She served the beans in chipped bowls, poured coffee that could float a horseshoe. They ate in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The wind rattled the windows like skeletal fingers. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out its lonely song. "Tomorrow," Red said finally, "Kane will come looking." "Kane? Sheriff? He owned my husband. Now he figures he owns me." Her knuckles whitened around the coffee cup. "He's wrong." Cole set down his spoon. "How wrong?" Red's smile was sharp as a blade. "Dead wrong." The promise in her voice sent heat through Cole's veins. This woman wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking for a partner. "What makes you think I'll stick around for that kind of trouble?" Red stood, moved to the window, peered through the cracked glass. The motion pulled her dress tight across her backside, and Cole's mouth went dry. When she turned back, her eyes held a challenge. "Because you're already in trouble. I can see it in the way you watch the, horizon. The way you keep your gun loose in its holster." She stepped closer. "You're running from something too." Cole's hand moved instinctively to his chest, where a federal marshal's badge lay hidden beneath his shirt. The badge that marked him as either a lawman or a traitor, depending on who was asking. "Maybe I am." Red was close enough now that he could smell her. Soap and gunpowder, sweat, and something uniquely feminine. Close enough to see the pulse beating at the base of her throat. "Then we understand each other." The space between them crackled with unspoken possibilities. Cole knew he should step back, keep his distance, but Red's hand came up to rest against his chest, fingers splaying over his heart. "You feel that?" she whispered. His pulse hammered beneath her palm. "Yeah." "That's what being alive feels like. I'd almost forgotten." When she kissed him, it wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate. The kiss of a woman who'd been starving and suddenly found sustenance. Cole's arms came around her, pulling her against him. She was all soft curves and hidden steel, melting into him like she belonged there. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This complicates things," Cole said. Red's smile was wicked. "I surely hope so." Dawn came like a gunshot, sudden and violent. Cole woke to the sound of horses, too many horses for a social call. Through the window, he counted 6 riders approaching in a loose line. Professional. Careful. Red was already awake, checking the load in her pistol. She'd changed into men's trousers and a white cotton shirt that hugged her curves in ways that made Cole's blood run hot, despite the danger. "Kane?" he asked. "Kane." She moved to the back window, peered out. "He's brought friends." Cole strapped on his gun belt, checked his Winchester. "How many ways out of here?" 2. "Neither of them good." Red's voice was steady, but he caught the tension in her shoulders. "Root Cellar's got a tunnel that comes out near the creek. 50 yards of open ground to reach it." "The other way." "Straight through them." Outside, a voice boomed across the yard. Scarlett O'Brien, you got something belongs to me. Red's jaw clenched. Like hell I do. She started for the front door, but Cole caught her arm. The contact sent electricity through both of them. Her skin was warm silk beneath his fingers. Easy, Wildcat. Let's think this through. Nothing to think about. Cain killed my husband when he wouldn't pay up. Now he wants the debt paid in flesh. Her eyes blazed. I'd rather die first. Won't come to that. Cole moved to the window, studied the riders. Cain was easy to spot, a big man with a silver star and dead eyes. The others looked like hired guns. I got a better idea. Such as? Cole's smile was all wolf. Give them what they came for. Red's hand went to her gun. The hell you will, not you. He pulled the federal badge from beneath his shirt, pinned it to his vest. Me. The sight of the badge stopped her cold. You're a lawman? Was. Maybe still am. Depends how this plays out. Cole checked his weapons one last time. Cain's wanted for murder, robbery, and about 6 other hanging offenses. Only problem is proving it. What do you need proof for? This is the territories. Cole met her eyes. Even in the pale morning light, she was beautiful and dangerous as a loaded gun. Because I'm not like him. Not yet, anyway. The sound of boots on the porch cut short their conversation. Cain's voice came through the door, oily with false concern. Now, Scarlett, I know you're in there. Why don't you come out so we can discuss your situation like civilized folk? Red moved to the door, pressed her back against it. The position arched her spine, pulled the white shirt tight across her breasts. Cole's concentration wavered for a dangerous moment. My situation's just fine, Cain, she called out. Better since I put a bullet in your boy yesterday. Silence. Then Cain's laughter, ugly as a vulture's cry. That was a mistake, girl. Tommy was kin. Tommy was a rapist. Tommy was collecting a debt. Your husband owed money. You inherited that debt. Red's knuckles were white around her gun grip. Cole could see the fury building in her. The same fire that had pulled the trigger yesterday. It would get them both killed. He touched her shoulder, felt the tension coiled there like a spring. When she looked at him, he saw fear beneath the anger. Not fear of dying. Fear of what might happen before death came. Trust me, he whispered. Her nod was barely perceptible. Cole opened the door. Cain stood on the porch like he owned it, thumbs hooked in his gun belt. He was bigger than Cole had thought, easily 6'4", with shoulders like a bull buffalo. The star on his chest was tarnished silver, but the Colt at his hip gleamed with recent care. Well now, Scarlett's got herself a protector. Cain's eyes took in Cole's badge, and his expression shifted. Federal man. Interesting. Sheriff. Cole's voice was level, professional. I'm Deputy Marshal Marcus Cole. This woman's under federal protection. It was a lie, but spoken with enough authority to give Cain pause. The hired guns behind him shifted nervously. Cain spat into the dust. On whose authority? Judge Parker. Little Rock. Another lie, smoother than the first. Miss O'Brien witnessed the murder of her husband by persons unknown. She's being held as a material witness. That's horseshit, and you know it. Cole shrugged. Take it up with the judge. The standoff stretched like a wire under tension. 6 against 2. Not impossible odds, but not good ones either. Cole counted escape routes, measured distances, calculated angles of fire. Then Red stepped out beside him. The morning sun caught her auburn hair like flame. The white shirt was thin enough to hint at the curves beneath, and every man in the yard noticed. But it was her eyes that held them, gray as winter steel, promising death to anyone fool enough to reach for her. Something you want to say to me, Cain? Her voice carried across the yard like a whip crack. Cain's tongue darted out to wet his lips. Just that debts need paying, one way or another. My husband's debts died with him. Not all debts are about money, girl. The way he looked at her made Cole's finger itch for his trigger. Red felt it too. Her breathing quickened, and a flush rose in her cheeks that spoke of anger rather than shame. You want to collect, she said quietly. You're welcome to try. The challenge hung in the air, like smoke from a fired gun. Kane's hand dropped to his weapon, but Cole was already moving. The Winchester came up smooth and fast, leveling on Kane's chest. I wouldn't. Cole's voice was barely above a whisper. Federal killing carries a rope. Your boys want to swing beside you. The hired guns looked at each other. Federal protection was one thing. Federal vengeance was another. One by one, their hands moved away from their weapons. Kane's face twisted with rage, but he wasn't stupid enough to draw on a leveled rifle. This ain't over, Cole. Not by a long shot. Maybe not. But it's over for today. They stared at each other across 10 feet of hard-pan dirt. Then Kane turned and stalked back to his horse. His men followed, mounting up with the careful movements of professionals who knew when to retreat. See you around, Scarlet, Kane called as they rode out. Real soon. Cole kept the rifle trained on them until they disappeared over the ridge. Only then did he lower the weapon and turn to Red. She was standing with her arms crossed, studying him with new interest. The morning light played over her skin like honey, and Cole found himself wondering what she'd look like with that white shirt unbuttoned. Federal Marshal, she said. That true? Was true. Still might be, if I can make this stick. And if you can't, Cole met her gaze. Then we're both dead. Red considered this, then nodded toward the house. Coffee's getting cold. They went inside, but the tension didn't leave with them. It coiled around them like smoke, thick with possibility and danger. Red poured coffee with steady hands, but Cole caught the slight tremor in her fingers. How long before they come back? He asked. Tonight. Maybe tomorrow. She handed him a cup, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The simple contact sent heat shooting up his arm. Kane's not the patient type. Cole sipped the bitter coffee, studying her over the rim. What was your husband into? Besides me. Red's laugh was harsh. Gambling, whiskey, other men's wives. She moved to the window, gazed out at the empty horizon. He owed money all over the territory. Kane just had the biggest claim. How big? 5,000, plus interest. Cole whistled low. It was more money than most men saw in a lifetime. What was he using for collateral? Red's silence was answer enough. You, Cole said. Me. She turned from the window, and the pain in her eyes hit him like a physical blow. Kane had a contract, signed and witnessed. If Johnny couldn't pay, she didn't need to finish. In the territories, contracts were iron law, even contracts signed under duress, with a gun pressed to a man's head. That's why you killed him, Cole said. Your husband. Red's coffee cup shattered on the floor. How did you... The way you handled the gun yesterday. The way you moved. You've killed before. Cole set down his cup, stepped toward her. Question is, was it self-defense or murder? For a moment he thought she might run or shoot him. Instead she began to laugh. Self-defense. The laughter died as quickly as it came. He was going to deliver me to Kane personally. Thought it might buy him more time. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I showed him different. Cole was close enough now to see the pulse hammering in her throat, to smell the scent of her hair. Close enough to reach out and touch the bruise on her jaw that makeup couldn't quite hide. Good, he said simply. The words seemed to break something loose inside her. She swayed toward him, and Cole's arms came up instinctively to catch her. She felt perfect against him, soft where he was hard, yielding where he was unyielding. "I'm not a good woman, Cole," she whispered against his chest. His hand tangled in her hair, tilted her face up to his. "Good women don't survive out here." When he kissed her this time, it was different. Deeper. More desperate. Her body molded itself to his, and Cole forgot about Kane, about the badge hidden in his belongings, about everything, except the woman in his arms and the way she made him feel alive. For the first time in years. Her hands worked at the buttons of his shirt, fingers trembling with urgency. When she found the scar across his ribs, a reminder of the bullet that had ended his career in Denver, she traced it with fingertips light as whispers. "Who tried to kill you?" she asked. "The same people who want me dead now." Cole's hands found the curve of her waist, marveled at the way she fit against him. "Does it matter?" "Everything matters." She looked up at him, gray eyes serious. "If we're going to die together, I want to know who you really are." Cole studied her face, the high cheekbones, the full lips, the determined chin. He'd been running from his past for so long, he'd almost forgotten what it felt like to want a future. "Marcus Cole," he said finally. "Deputy U.S. Marshal, suspended pending investigation, wanted for questioning in the deaths of 3 federal agents and a territorial judge." "Did you kill them?" "Number. But I know who did." Red nodded, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "Anyone I know?" "Senator Harrison. Territorial Governor Blackwood. Half the federal bench between here and Washington." Cole's smile was bitter. "Turns out, the law's for sale, just like everything else. And you found out. I found out. They found out I found out. Things got complicated after that." Red's fingers traced the line of his jaw, and Cole leaned into the touch despite himself. "How complicated?" "The kind where innocent people end up dead to keep secrets buried." Cole caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I've got evidence, documents, enough to bring down the whole network." "Where?" "Safe place, for now." He studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. Finding none, he made a decision that would change everything. "Hidden in my saddlebags?" Red's eyes widened. "Jesus, Cole, you're carrying that kind of dynamite around? Wasn't planning on staying anywhere long enough to hide it proper?" His thumb traced circles on her wrist, feeling her pulse race beneath the skin. "Plans change. They surely do." Red's voice was husky with promise. This time when she kissed him, Cole didn't hold back. His hands roamed her body with growing urgency, mapping the curves that had been tormenting his thoughts since yesterday. When he lifted her onto the table, she wrapped her legs around his waist and pulled him closer. "Red," he said against her throat. "Scarlet," she corrected. "My name's Scarlet." Scarlet. He tasted the name on his tongue, like fine whiskey. Outside, the wind was picking up, carrying the scent of rain and distant gun smoke. Inside, 2 damaged souls found something worth fighting for in each other's arms. But in the gathering storm clouds, Kane and his men were already planning their return. They came with the storm. Cole woke to the sound of thunder, or what he thought was thunder until he recognized the rhythm. Hoofbeats. A lot of them. Scarlet was already moving, pulling on boots and checking her weapon. Lightning illuminated her silhouette through the thin nightdress, and even with death riding toward them, Cole felt desire stir. "How many?" she asked. Cole peered through the shutters. Rain lashed the windows, but he could make out shapes moving in the darkness. "More than 6. Kane brought reinforcements." "Back door?" "Blocked. They're not amateurs." Cole grabbed his rifle, checked the load. Root cellar? Scarlet shook her head. They'll have thought of that, too. A voice boomed through the storm. Kane, using a speaking trumpet to cut through the wind and rain. Cole, you got something belongs to Senator Harrison. Hand over them papers and the woman, and maybe you live to see sunrise. Cole's blood turned to ice. If Kane knew about Harrison, then the corruption ran deeper than he'd imagined. Deep enough to have tentacles reaching all the way out here. How? Scarlet asked. Telegraph. Someone's been busy. Cole's mind raced. The documents in his saddlebag could topple governments, or get them both killed. They want us both dead now. No witnesses. Then we give them a fight worth remembering. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Scarlet's face. Her gray eyes burned with fierce determination, and Cole realized he'd never seen anything more beautiful. You sure about this? He asked. Her answer was to cock her pistol. The attack came from 3 sides at once. Professional. Coordinated. Kane had brought soldiers, not cowboys. Cole's Winchester barked fire through the front window, while Scarlet covered the side. Glass exploded inward as bullets chewed through the window frames. Move! Cole grabbed their ammunition and pulled Scarlet toward the back room. They dove behind an overturned table just as the front wall erupted in splinters. A man came through the window in a shower of glass and gunfire. Scarlet put 2 bullets in his chest before he hit the ground. Another tried the door. Cole's rifle sent him spinning back into the storm. Cellar, Cole said. Now. They fought their way across the room, laying down covering fire, while bullets whined overhead. The cellar door was hidden beneath a rug in the corner. Cole hauled it open while Scarlet held them back. Go! She shouted. Together! A shadow moved in the kitchen doorway. Kane himself, big as a mountain and twice as ugly. His gun came up, centered on Scarlet's chest. Cole's shot took him high in the shoulder, spinning him around. Kane's return fire went wide, punching holes in the ceiling. But the big man kept coming, blood streaming down his arm. You cost me a lot of money, Cole. Kane's voice was thick with pain and rage. But the woman's gonna pay it back. He lunged for Scarlet. She tried to dodge, but her foot caught on the overturned table. Kane's massive hand closed around her wrist, hauling her against him. The stink of whiskey and violence rolled off him in waves. Pretty little thing, he breathed against her ear. Gonna take my time with you. Scarlet's response was to jam her gun barrel under his chin and pull the trigger. The shot was muffled by flesh and bone, but the result was spectacular. Kane's head snapped back, and his grip loosened. He toppled like a felled tree, most of his skull decorating the wall behind him. Jesus, Cole said. Scarlet wiped blood from her face with the back of her hand. Had to be done. More men were coming through the front door. Cole grabbed his saddlebag and pushed Scarlet toward the cellar. Move! They dropped into darkness just as the kitchen filled with gunfire. The tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for Cole's shoulders. Water seeped through the earth walls, and the air smelled of roots and decay. Where's it come out? Cole asked. Creek bed. Maybe 30 yards. Scarlet's voice was tight with strain. If it hasn't collapsed. They crawled through mud and darkness while boots thundered overhead. Behind them, voices shouted orders. Someone had found the cellar entrance. Faster, Cole urged. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. Cole's knees were raw, his shoulders scraped bloody by the narrow walls. The saddlebag containing the evidence dragged behind him like a millstone. Then he saw light. They emerged into a wash carved by flash floods, sheltered by overhanging rocks. Rain still fell in sheets, turning the world into a gray curtain. Perfect cover, if they could reach the horses. There, Scarlet pointed through the storm. 2 shapes moved near a cluster of cottonwoods. Their mounts spooked but still ground-tied, They ran. Bullets chased them across the open ground, kicking up geysers of mud. Cole felt one tug at his shirt, another burn across his thigh. Scarlett stumbled, and for a heart-stopping moment he thought she'd been hit. Then she was up again, running with the fluid grace of a deer. They reached the horses as Kane's men burst from the tunnel behind them. Cole boosted Scarlett into the saddle of his bay, then swung up behind her. His mare reared, iron-shod hooves striking sparks from stone. "Ride!" Cole shouted. They plunged into the storm like ghosts made of wind and rain. 3 days later, they sat on a ridge overlooking the town of Cedar Falls. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and sharp. Cole's documents were in the hands of a federal judge, and warrants were being issued from Denver to Santa Fe. "Think it'll stick?" Scarlett asked. "Some of it." Cole adjusted the bandage on his thigh. "Enough to matter." Below them, the town was coming alive. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played in muddy streets. Normal people living normal lives, unaware of how close they'd come to losing everything. Scarlett leaned back against Cole's chest, and he wrapped his arms around her. She smelled of soap and sunshine, with just a hint of gunpowder. Perfect. "What now?" she asked. Cole considered the question. His name would be cleared, probably. The corruption would be rooted out, mostly. Justice would be served, eventually. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the woman in his arms, the way she'd fought beside him, the way she'd trusted him with her life, her secrets, her heart. "There's a valley about 50 miles north," he said finally. "Good water, decent soil, far enough from civilization to keep us out of trouble." "Us?" Cole's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. If you want..." Scarlett turned in his arms, gray eyes searching his face. "What are you asking me, Marshal Cole?" "I'm asking if you want to build something. Together." His thumb traced the line of her jaw. "Something clean. Something ours." Her smile was radiant as the morning sun cresting the mountains. "I thought you'd never ask." When she kissed him, it tasted like promises and new beginnings, like redemption earned through fire and blood and love that refused to be broken. Behind them, their horses stamped and snorted, eager for the trail. Ahead lay unknown country. Dangerous, beautiful, full of possibility. They rode toward it together, two souls who had found salvation in each other's arms. The past was buried with Kane in that muddy grave. The future stretched before them like an unbroken horizon. And if you've made it this far in our tale, you know there's more stories where this came from. Stories of love and danger in the wild frontier. Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're reading from. Because every ending is just another beginning, and every sunset promises a new dawn.